Okay, today's project's going to be this remains of an old radiogram. I believe this was a Pye branded one. Got a bit of a radio dial in there. I assume that's the tuning. Yep, big tuning dial underneath there and dial string. And a few slider pots, a couple of switches, scratch on and off for the record, radiogram, headphones, tape connection, so you could actually plug a tape into this. Now, it was actually something I salvaged a long time ago, and I was actually going to throw it away since it's been lying around for too long, but I thought you don't actually see a lot of this early sort of 70s or late 60s type technology around anymore. These were quite a common thing once. Very much set up like this with a power transformer similar to this, axial filter capacitor, things like the old tag strip construction, and these old circuit boards which were often like this, quite a dark brown colour with this blue overlay to show where the actual tracks were. I guess it made it easier to maybe trace the tracks when you're working on the top side of the board. Mostly these days we just work on the bottom side and you just work out what component is what. Still a bit of flux on this thing. I have given it a bit of a clean up, it was pretty filthy. But yeah, 4 output transistors I think were in there. Does it say anything on there? Something issue. Yeah, just it looks like the germanium output transistors. Could be something else. Actually, no, more look at it, they're actually just TO92 shoved in there, I think. I can see a bit of plastic case sticking out, so nothing much different to the other TO92s in here, so it only would have been good for a watt or two of power probably, which was pretty standard for these sort of things. Obviously got a tuning cap, big old aerial rod. They used to actually give you a decent one in the old days, great big long ones, so probably picked up a bit better than the little ones you get now, which are fine in an AM radio or something, transistor radio where you've got no room. But these old home units were sort of made for the country a bit as well, so that's, you know, probably 3 times the length of a normal one. And we've got a few connections on the back here, which I assume one of these would be the phono input. The fact this has got 2 sets of figure 8 cables coming out of it went to some old socket. That's probably your speaker output. I'd say that's just an earth wire for the radio. So more than likely that's going to be the phono input, which may be stereo, may be mono. It's got 4 connections, so it could be stereo. So another plug here, and we've got this old cut off power cord here, so it'll just be a matter of hooking onto that. I just really want to see if it still goes. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, despite being old and dirty and not used for years, and no new caps or anything in it. Chances are all these old electrodes will be fairly good in it. So it looks like the fuse comes up to this power switch, and you can see one of the wires already goes back to this other socket, and the neutral goes to the other one. So it doesn't look like that's even, oh maybe it is switched, there is a, it's on a separate tab. I'm not sure, yeah, maybe those 2 wires join together. Yeah, that makes sense because that's the transformer. So it looks like that socket is your record player. That's for your phono side of things. That's for the power, the motor in it. So that's actually switched. The mains active comes in through the contacts in the switch, back to that socket where it both would have plugged into the record player, which was a separate unit, and then it goes through the fuse into the power transformer. And yeah, both of them are connected to the, well, the neutral from the transformer and the power cord are also joined on that socket. And then it looks like we've got a secondary switching of the output of the, that'll be the positive side of our filter capacitor. I can see a half-wave rectifier, 2 diodes there. So it looks like they also switch the DC voltage to low voltage. Not sure what this thing will run on, but somewhere under 20 volts I would think. And so yeah, just out of interest, I'll be interested to see if it actually still works, because I'd be actually surprised if it doesn't still work, at least if the radio wouldn't at least pick something up. These old slider pots are probably going to be very scratchy and horrible. I'm not sure why we've got so many of them. Possibly it would be bass and treble and left and right channel, as they often did in this old stuff. Not sure what that other switch does. So we've got radiogram, power on off, scratch filter. Maybe it's something to do with the tape input or something else. Who knows? Unfortunately someone ripped all the aluminium off the label, so I can't see what's there. So really the first thing to do will be to actually get a terminal block and hook up another mains cord to this, and I guess a couple of checks for DC on this output, and then hook up a couple of speakers. I might even just chop the old sockets and stuff off those, get rid of the rest of that wire. Don't want any of that, don't want any chance of that shorting out, even though it's only very low power. I'll just wrap that earth wire somewhere around the radio coil, just so there's no chance of it coming in contact with the mains voltage or anything. So I'll get that connected up and we'll have another look. Okay, I have a power cord attached now via a terminal block, so I'll just do a couple of basic tests. Should have got my multimeter ready, a couple of basic tests before we do anything. The obvious one being between active and earth. Turn the power switch on. No short circuit there, so that's a good sign. There should be some sort of measurement, and there isn't, which is a bad sign. So we're dead already before we started. Should get the transformer kick in when the power switch goes. There's no guarantee this power switch is working. It may well be seized up, which could be the case. Yeah, I'd say that's our problem. Why doesn't have to check a few things. That side works. Is it going to work or not? No, it is working, I think. Is it? But I've still got no connection there, so that's a bad sign. So active comes to here. Yeah, no, it's lying to me, I think. Goes to the switch. Doesn't want to come to the other side. Neutral. Neutral should be connected to there as well. I don't think we've got anything through this fuse, so the fuse connection may be loose as... Let's see if we've got a connection through the fuse. Nope. Fuse doesn't look to be blown. I can see the spring inside there. So chances are it's just sitting in this fuse holder badly or something. Well, then again, maybe it's shot. It's got a bit of a wrap of something in there. But yeah, that fuse seems to be dead. Let's just check. Still not getting a good connection to active though. Okay, there we are. So that fuse holder's pretty tarnished and horrible. And we should have a short between there and, not a short, but a low resistance. That'll be our power transfer from neutral to the active side of the fuse. On the transformer side, 210 ohms, that seems alright. The other thing I'll just quickly check across is this filter capacitor. And we'll probably get some sort of reading. Nothing high, just check, I guess, across these two diodes while we're at it. For short circuit across either the filter capacitor or the rectifier diodes, because those rectifier diodes could burn out your transformer pretty quick if you're not careful. The fuse should blow, but still better not to stress the transformer out. They seem to be alright, definitely not shorted. So we've got a couple of problems here. What is this fuse? It is a so many volt, 250 volt. They actually still put the voltage rating on that one. They don't always bother these days. And I can't read anything much else. Looks like it's, what's it say? It's a name or something. I can read some letters, but not what the actual rating is. Which is really annoying. Maybe it's after the 240 volt bit. 240 volt. It actually says the word volt. What on earth does the other end say? Looks like an S something. S. Almost impossible to read. Is that an amp rating? I think it says bus, B-U-S-S. Something. Yeah, lovely design that is. And I guess it doesn't tell you on the chassis anywhere. Oh well, looks like it's probably going to get a couple of amp, maybe even a 1 amp will do if I can find one in that size. put them all. Son of a bitch. Fuck's sake, I can't find anything in this fucking place. Okay, a selection of old school fuses. Probably even a few milliamps would do in this thing. 3AG by 1 amp. It's not a slow blow, but it's easy to get, so that'll have to do. Obviously, if you're going to keep the equipment going, you'd make sure you put the correct slow blow fuse in, otherwise it'll run for a while and blow just from the sort of inrush current. So I'll keep those speaker wires apart. Now let's just, I'll double check again if we've got a connection, and we still haven't got anything, but have I got the power switch on? That power switch is dicky, I think. So when I poke around it, yeah, definitely a dicky power switch there somewhere. So we've now got through the fuse, I take it. Nope. That's what you get for looking at old stuff. That fuse is definitely open. This one's got to be alright. So we've still got a dicky fuse holder by the look of it. Yeah, to there it's no good. I can actually see some rust or something down in there by the look of it, or tarnish or something. Who would know with old gear like this? So you may have to give them a bit of a scrape out. Probably do a better job if you're actually going to get this thing going and keep it going, rather than just scratching it with a screwdriver. Now we've got a connection there at least, so that's something. So is this switch any good or not? No, so I do it and it stops. I poke it a bit around it. So it looks like we're going to have to short that switch out as well, which is not surprising considering it's probably been sitting around in the rain and the dirt and who knows what over the years. Now I can always just put a clip lead on that. Not ideal on the active wire. But if I just put that from one side to the other, making sure it can't come off in a hurry, especially can't touch on any low voltage stuff. Fingers crossed going across the terminal block here now, we've actually got a reading. Yeah, 0.1, so that would have been that transformer, I think it was a couple hundred ohms, yep. Okay, so that's all the work we've got to do just to get it going. I might put this on DC voltage and see if I can get across that filter cap while not shorting it on anything else, so we can see what happens when I plug this in and turn it on. Now we have 20 odd volts, that's a bit of going up slightly. No smoke or anything, nothing smells weird so far. So it is quite a high output voltage, around 23 volts, but it is just a half wave type rectifier. So it's probably a lot lower AC voltage, but gets a bit higher by the time it's rectified and filtered by this filter cap. And it's steady, so that's a good sign. Now I didn't see the light globe come on, but whether we're on radiogram is another thing. And chances are the light globe's probably blown, but sometimes they're still alright in these things. Probably going to be the big risk in this thing. I don't know what that other switch actually does. I guess the other thing I'll check is for DC output, being careful not to touch any of this clip lead area or where this power cord is. I probably should move that out of the way. Check the output of the amplifier. That does have a bit of DC on it, but that's more than likely due to having output capacitors, like such as those two big ones. So I really need to ideally get a resistor on there, wire wound resistor or something. Actually, I've got some dummy loads here somewhere, whatever happened to them. And you can check it with speaker dummy loads or wire wound resistors or something, just to, I think they're in line there, yeah. just to see if that voltage disappears as soon as you connect it up, because it's just the output of a capacitor charged up, I'm guessing. If not, we might get something interesting happening when we put a massive 8 ohm load on here that it can't do anything to. Either that'll get hot or burn out the output stage somewhere, but chances are that will be fine anyway. Yeah, that's dropped right down, so I think we can probably call that safe. A lot of these old ones were designed with output caps, which they got rid of in the later amps, so that'll tend to give you a bit of a reading. Now, I did have an old boombox speaker here somewhere. I might even, just to be safe, hook up to an old boombox speaker so that I don't blow anything useful in my test gear, like my test speakers. So just a basic 2 or 3 watt boombox speaker will do the job in this case. Just sit that on the bench. And not surprisingly, we have a bit of sound there. A bit scratchy. Now that's our volume, at least for that channel. And that's tone. And that's bass maybe. Treble. Maybe that's balance. Maybe it just has a single volume control. That'd be nice for a change. That's gram. Ah, the scratch filter even works on the radio. That. Possibly a loudness control. And just like that it works. Just with the right antenna. In a garage which doesn't have very good reception. AM is not real good at the best of times.
So I think that is important. I do think that the Commonwealth has an important
And which way
to address
how you face the antenna rod varies what the reception's like.
Institution to be used for that discussion, if you like. It can provide an arena where the difficult issues around the legacy of colonialism can be discussed in the round. It's much easier to have that discussion.
Sounds very exciting.
Stored for the dumb bulk.
I think we should always just pay attention to what nature's showing us.
So my hand there is improving things.
Success looks like more animals thriving in the wild. And if something we're doing doesn't create that, we should pause and find out why.
Maybe if I take that earth wire off will help.
That probably whatever we do, there'll be some negative consequence. That we're not going to be perfect. The system's far too complex. Everything we do has a consequence that we don't understand properly.
Oh no, it's doom and gloom like usual. That's why I don't listen to the radio anymore, and I don't think many people do. But amazingly, it does seem to work okay.
It means green frog. He got that name because when all these little frogs stuck to the window, that had never...
So we can try the other channel as well. Come on.
Bunurong writer has given a guide to this 2-part program. It was produced by Lynn Gallagher and Miyuki Yokiranta, and the sound engineer was Tim. To learn about the other seasons in the Bunurong Calendar, find Sonny's book, Cool Tales, 7 Seasons of the Bunurong. We'll put a link on the History Listening website. I'm Kirsty Norbury. Thanks for your company and for sharing this rare moment here inside. See you next time. If you could...
Oops, I think I killed it. Was that the speaker coming off? Oops, I've killed something.
Affection,
Oh, it's back.
speak for my country, and now for Melbourne.
So as expected, it still works quite well. It's reasonably loud given the... Just turn the power off. Low output it has. But even 2 or 3 watts power is enough for most people. Just for playing some music in your lounge room or whatever. Listening to the radio while you're doing a bit of cooking or something.
More frequently and be entertained.
They're going to fire it up the moon and then... So I get the game going on
Oh,
Mars.
gee, that's a reason to the ABC Listen Hub.
Lend me your ear.
Download it now from your app store.
Best known for photographing infantilized men, Donald Trump, and the late Queen, Polly Boland has long been experimenting with the surreal. Faceless bodily from sculptures best described as either embryonic or monstrous. And now she's collaborating with global art company
Yeah, hard to get good reception here.
Jackson Pollock.
Hey, Christopher Ryan. I'm the Director General of the Commonwealth. The sound engineer is Simon Brent.
And that's a really difficult situation of trying to contest the shot, but offensive players are really good at selling that now, and Stokey's going to come line for 3 free throws. Sloppy from Jared Weeks in the clutch.
It does. I wonder if it's overheating and shutting off when I do that. Still a bit of a crack there.
Time for the Bullets to be able to play out a defensive possession without foul. Still got the last shot in this game. 35 Thurston makes it.
Maybe it's a Dicky switch, Dicky pot. That's amazing. That's just filthy.
Points to lead.
There's hardly any scratchiness in the pots.
He stops and he props it in.
See how good they used to make them. I don't reckon they would have been made in Australia at that stage. I think they're early Alps. So if you ever want a good advertisement for Alps potentiometers, that's it right there. They've been, as far as I know, sitting upright with dirt falling in them and the old foam had all deteriorated. Probably had water in it as well. This thing was absolutely filthy before I cleaned it. And yet only the volume control, which is one which would have had a lot of use. It's the only one that's even got a slight bit of scratching in it. So even the power switch is given out, which looks like a fairly dodgy one, possibly the sort of one that Philips or something would have used in some of their TVs and stuff. It looks like that kind of thing. Since Pye were related to Philips, part of the company, or maybe not by this stage, but probably. Assuming this is a Pye, I'm pretty sure it was a Pye. It's got a couple of blown light globes there, which should be alright to get going again. You can see the 2 rubber things there. So you've got a couple of light globe sockets. They should just actually pull out if you get the other wires out of the way. Usually you could pull them out through the... Here we go. Man, it's a long one. Not really enough. There's a short wire attached just to make it difficult to get out. And the globes are a little too long to come out by the look of it. I don't fancy pulling the whole front to bits. I think you'd have to take this plastic bit off, which looks like it's probably been glued down. And then the radio dial's still in the way. Looks like this is an old radio dial that still has all the radio stations from around Australia written on it, which is interesting since it's that old. I think we get either of these lamps out in a hurry. So I think that other wire goes between them. Oh, look, we've just broken the terminal off the back of that one. So as soon as I touched that, it moved. So the little rivet has failed on that one. Oh, there goes some more bits of it. Probably ought to remove the other terminal there, if it'll come off. We might be able to get the whole light out. There we go. Well, at least that one comes out easier. I think, yeah. So it looks like it's been painted in a white colour paint. I was wondering what was on the other one, but I assume these are just blown, but it's possible we're missing a voltage somewhere. Oh, that's good. So that's probably a working light bulb. Typical. So that's the missing voltage. And maybe that's through another switch somewhere. That's really annoying. Where does it go to? I can see one wire comes back to this. There's a green cap on there. It's got to be, oh, it goes to the chassis by the look of it. Goes down a screw through this tag strip to the aluminium chassis. So that's the earth side, obviously. And this other one actually comes up. Oh, it looks like it's actually a separate winding of the transformer. So it's not impossible something's dead there. I doubt it, but it's. I can measure ohms across here, but if that other light bulb's still good, we're just going to get a reading, because that's the other light globe probably. So I have to get the soldering iron and disconnect this other wire. There's an earth wire. Actually, I can get it out now. That'll be right. Just pull it on the right angle and out it comes. So I'm guessing this light globe's still good. Maybe not. So maybe we had a broken light globe fitting and a broken light globe. That'd be typical. So if we measure this brown wire, we'll cross the light bulb holder basically. For a circuit, we should get the transformer across it. So I can make a good connection. Nothing in here is making a very good connection. Everything's pretty tarnished from age, dust and stuff all over it. Come on, 1.7 ohms. So where did my other light bulb disappear to? Here. I'll say chances are if I put that in the other socket, yeah, 4 ohms, that was about right for a light bulb filament. So that looks like the other socket may have broken at some stage, which disconnected this other lamp, which in turn allowed it to actually, I might just remove that wire completely for the other socket. And I think the other lug's just an earth wire, so that doesn't matter if it floats around a bit as long as it doesn't touch too much. Chance though, if we put that light bulb, I guess I could just plug it in. No, nothing. Oh, are we actually on? Guess we better check. Sounded like the speaker fired up, but I'm not hearing any more than that. Probably because I turned the volume down. Not getting anything. Interesting. 1 volts, actually 1 volts AC. Across that light globe fitting. It looks like there's something there. So I can connect. Only 3.6 volts seems a bit low. Should normally be about 6. Yeah, and it comes on when I turn it off. Still some weird stuff. Looks like it's a dicky volume control or something. No sign of power on that globe, I don't think. Something seems to cut this thing off occasionally. Yeah, that seems to measure alright, so like I said, maybe it didn't screw in enough or it's got paint all over it, which doesn't help. maybe much like the fuse, we've got a dicky connection here somewhere. There is some sort of either oxide or varnish on that, and I'll scrape the socket out as well. Got the power off, make sure, because this could short out the socket. Yeah, it's definitely got something on it. Not that 3 volts seems to be enough, but again, I can't say, oh, there might be a rating there, but you know, good luck finding that. If I can scrape some of this paint off. Usually they're 6 volts. Does that say 6 volts? A 6 volt, oh yeah, it might be 6 volt, 0 point something watts or something. Actually, oh yeah, 6.3 I think it is, which is normal. The heater filaments of valves and stuff used to be that. Oh, there we go. But now we've got this weird sound issue again. Have I got a dicky speaker connector here or something? It's much like the speaker's cutting out. Strange. But given these old sockets, I'm not surprised if it would be something like that. I might just pull that side. Oh god, it's disgusting. Ugh. Give an idea what this thing's like. Looks like it's got some wax or something in there, so I guess it's not the end of the world, but could be making bad connections there. So besides some bad connections and stuff as you'd expect, and far fewer than I was expecting, this thing amazingly is somewhere around a 50-year-old mark and still running fine. And now we can see the radio dial, or at least half of it. Quite a nice coloured one. ZR is still on ZR by the look of it.
Before shooting, none to 2 from downtown.
Maybe that's ZR. HT. Should be the horse racing, which sounds like it's still there amazingly. One of the few that still are. Yep, 7HT. Oops, something's not working out. I think I just slipped the dial.
Yeah, he's dropped his head at all. He's out there, and he has to now find.
So I think we'll talk about the drive, the process, and the reason I chose sellers was
They've got 7ZL further down the band. I think that was 7ZL.
their seller really hit together with Russian soldiers and developed a very strange relationship with them. Then there are torture sellers that the Russians are constantly driving Ukrainians into. In Yasikne and Chernihiv, many journalists found that the Russians took the whole village, 300, and kept them locked in a cellar for a month. People hide in cellars in the bomb.
Touch that. But yeah, the actual radio dial's glowing a bit there. Looks like they actually put a bit of white paint over it to make it look a bit better on the actual light globes, which I don't think I've seen white on them before. It's a bit different. But yeah, amazing that this thing's still running, but not to me really. I expected it would be. These things were amazingly well built, and besides a few little things like that fuse that seems to be open circuit, and the fuse holder was a bit dicky, not at all surprising. May have been hit by something or the like. One blown light globe and one faulty light globe socket. Again, not particularly amazing. All the electrolytics, you'd probably find a lot of these seem to measure overvalue these capacitors from the start, and they were well sealed. Again, they put the money into actually making them properly in those days. I think probably better quality rubber seals. Don't know what it really was. So that's a 16 volt 470. See what it measures. Probably not the best, but hard to actually make a good connection to it. 0.12, so that would be pretty good for a 470. At how many volts? 16. 0.18. So it's even better than, like I say, better than a what the ESR meter says a new one should be like. A 0.10 on the other one. That is 25 volt, 25 microfarad. They like to use oddball values like that once before they sort of standardised them. 1.2 and a 25 volt, 22 microfarad should be a 2.1. So it's half of that. So it shows why they lasted. That one's even lower by the look of it. Unless I could be measuring something across it, but can't be 0.2 surely. It's certainly measuring very low. But that seems like there's something weird going on there. I think we're back to 1.2 on that one. Here's another one. If I can make a good connection to it. 1.2 again. So they're better than new, basically. Better than a new modern one. I guess I should really short that main filter cap out in case it's got a bit of charge on it. And let's see what that is. It's a 2500 35 volt. And yeah, measuring very low. Let's say 1000 at 35 volt 0.07, which is about what it was, I think. So again, it's even, well, it is double that, I guess, so it should be half that sort of amount, which it is, since it's twice as many microfarads. So yeah, I mean, we could actually have a look at a few resistors even and see how they're going. On a modern multimeter, what's that, a 2.7 or 270 I think it is. Yeah, never in shot. That should be a 270 ohm. It's a bit lower, but then of course there may be other components across it. That is a 180, oh 18 ohm I think it is. I'm starting to forget the codes on these things. Yeah, there you go, slightly high. 27 ohm. Yeah, so these ones are measuring a little high. Let's go for a higher one. That's a 2K2. That's, although admittedly this is a 20% resistor, so 2.3 probably within, is it 20% or 10% the silver band? I forget, and it might actually be the next one from the 5%. So a 10%, which at 2000 ohms sits within the 10%, I'd say. That's a 47 or 470 I should say. Oh no, 570 is it? Yeah, sorry, yellow is blue, yellow is 4, blue is 6, and green is 5. So I think it's a 560. So a little high again. Let's see, compare it to one of these lighter coloured ones, which is a 10, which it is 10, spot on. That's a K one. Let's see, is that a 2K2 or 3K3 or something? Or even a 33K, I don't think it's that high, is it? No, it is. It's kind of right on it too. Almost like Fluke used these resistors to calibrate its multimeters. That is a, I can't tell what the first, is it brown, black, green? That would be a super high one, which it is. I can't tell what colour that is. The first band's impossible to really tell. I think it's black green after that, so it is in the meg ohm. It would suggest it's a purple or something around the 8ish or purpley blue, grey, was it grey actually? I think grey is 8, isn't it? Purple's a 7. Got another 2K2. Which is quite high. That one's definitely not measuring very well. Let's have a look at this one. Another 2K2. Oh, I'm wrong. 22K. So that measures 8. That may have something across it. That measures 25. 25. This is in the 100K range. 1.2 or 120, I should say. 135 instead of 120. 11. That's a 1K. It's a 4K7, but I can't get to both ends of it, so I won't worry about that. There's a 470 ohm. Hmm, 6 ohm high. So there you go. So no doubt if we actually plug the phono input into this other socket, wherever it was under here, or a tape socket line into there, we could probably get this thing running on that as well. If the radio's working fine, yeah, I've checked both channels do work. It's another bit of cleaner in that pot. I guess that's something I should do just to see if it fixes it, because it probably will. Yeah, I've still got power connected. Turn it on. Seem to be lacking audio again. Which is a bit of a random problem. And turn the power off, it comes on.
The early 90s.
It's actually lost its scratchiness. Well, a little bit, but
The blessing of the EU. You can bring down physical barriers, but linguistic ones, not so easy. People retain their identity. English is sometimes a cop-out if you want to avoid getting into linguistic trouble. English is this solvent to the...
could be the headphone socket. Ah, that's where we're dicky.
When it goes beyond the commercial,
Yeah, that's what it is.
start creating families together. But there's little evidence this is happening much in Maastricht.
Because the headphone socket's got switches in it, so that when you plug into it, when your headphones in, it cuts the speakers off. That sounds like that's what's playing up there. That's probably why I didn't notice it on the other channel before, so the other channel might be alright. So I'll hook the speaker back to the other set of wires. That sounds like that is probably our problem.
In Iran, we hear from organization monitoring the scale of the unrest and from Iranians living outside the country. Also, the conflict in Ethiopia. There have been diplomatic moves this week.
Seems alright now.
Have they made? That's all here on Weekend with me, Julian Warwicker, after the latest world news.
So another dodgy connection in there. I wonder if that mutes that if I turn it off properly. Ah, yes.
People were killed or wounded in overnight shelling in the southeast.
Maybe another reason to turn it off at the main switch on the secondary side. That's probably to mute everything, so you're disconnecting from this filter capacitor, so it can't sit there like when I turn it off and let the amp run out of voltage. So that's with the filter cap in circuit,
Russia. President Putin has...
and that just mutes it. Bit crackly because of the switch, but
broadcast a protest against the country's supreme leader.
yeah. So that's why they switch both sides, I guess. Basically acts as a turn-off muting control. Makes quite a lot of sense to do it that way. No need for any fancy circuitry if you just have a switch that instantly disconnects the filter capacitor from the output transistors. Though, is it the output transistors? Because I can see a red wire coming from that filter capacitor into that board there. So maybe it's not even the output, as long as the input signal from the radio or whatever gets killed quickly, that's probably enough. That could well be the radio section, that'd probably be the last thing left with any power, since it doesn't draw much current. Something like that. Even though I guess if the amp's still connected, it will probably still pull that down as well. But yeah, certainly an interesting old unit, and like most of the stuff in this era, still runs fine. And could still be used if it had the aluminium on there and didn't look so awful. And I don't think that's the original knob on there by the look of it. It could be, but yeah, it might be correct for that era. And great big tuning capacitor there. But this was often a way, if you found a beaten up old one of these units with a faulty record player, you could basically pull this chassis out, maybe make up a little wooden box for it or something for yourself, and this would be a nice AM radio for your shed or something. If you just wanted a bit of radio to listen to, a lot of these things could be recycled like that. You just pull the whole guts out of them, toss the record player in the original box, which was probably a big upright unit with record storage and God knows what on it. And like I say, you could make a nice little shelf radio out of this. Find a couple of old speakers, maybe the ones off the original unit, even if they're not too big. And away you go. Or even just, you could even put a speaker in the box, just run a mono speaker and make your own sort of mantle radio, basically. Anyway, thanks for watching.